Welcome to Partnerships for Profit, the podcast where we bring you inside the world of joint ventures, strategic partnerships, and powerful collaborations. Each episode, you'll dive into conversations with top entrepreneurs, visionaries, and business leaders, unlocking the secrets to building profitable relationships that drive growth and success. Whether you're looking to expand your network, find new referral partners, or scale your business, you're in the right place. Let's get started.
Welcome to Partnerships for Profit, presented by LeDuc Entertainment. Today we are joined by Steve Heroux, an author, a speaker, and the CEO of the Sales Collective. Steve, welcome to the show.
Thanks, man. Good to be on, Adrian. Appreciate it.
Can you start out by telling me a little bit about yourself, a little bit about the Sales Collective, and a little bit about what it means to be a sales contrarian?
Sure, I'll do my best to give you the 60-second version, but grew up in Boston, didn't say a word the first probably 18 years of my life. The quietest, shyest kid you've ever met. I mean, like mimes, right? Are like, wow, this dude is pretty quiet. So I ended up getting into a really expensive business school in Boston and had to help my parents pay for college. So I was going to take any job at all. I ended up taking a job with Cutco knives, which many of you are probably laughing right now and know what that is well. And I remember getting the job because, you know, their hiring process, if you don't, is very rigorous. And they go, yeah, he's good. So I went and told my parents I was going to sell knives door to door. And my parents are the Costanzas from Seinfeld. So some of you know how quite supportive and quiet that environment was for me. So he forbade me from selling knives and, of course, told me to get a real job. I'll save the rest of the story for later when we can use F-bombs. But he called me not intelligent, basically. So I begged my mom for the money to do the Cutco knife thing. And that was freshman year of college. And my senior year, I was number one in the country selling Cutco knives from a kid that didn't speak. And so
wow.
That sort of started my career in sales. I led sales teams for them for a few years after that. And then I went to the insurance company with the duck, which many of you all know what Aflac is. And I remember going to the job fair and the guy saw my resume and he goes, "You made money selling Cutco knives?" I'm like, "Yes, sir, a lot of it." And he goes, "You could do Aflac." And I go, "What is Aflac anyway?" And he goes, "It doesn't matter. When can you start?" So that was my interview with Aflac. I spent 13 years there and somehow in the middle of my career did slightly better than 59,000 other agents. And so,
wow.
You know, leading teams for them as well. And still, I'm so excited. Just moved back to San Diego and was just talking to some of my old Aflac buddies and realized that I just wanted to teach and train and coach people that there's a different way, right, to be successful in sales without doing this ABC bullshit and all of these antiquated, you know, feel, felt, found, oh yeah, yes, ladder, using, magic sales methodologies that predate the friggin' moon landing, right? So I started Sales Collective to be able, right, to do that and to build environments, right, where salespeople felt like an actual human being, right, and not some means to a line item for, EBITDA, right? So that's sort of why I do what I do.
You know, it's funny you bring up Cutco. My freshman year of college, my roommate was a Cutco knife salesman. Yeah. And his pitch was always, "Well, while I cut this penny in half, let me tell you a joke. A rabbi and a priest walk into a bar and, I never get to finish the joke. The knife, the scissors are too sharp."
You remember the penny thing. So we had to cut up, pennies and like rope and leather. And within like my first week, I'm like, it occurred to me that I don't really know a lot of people who eat, US currency for dinner. So maybe I should just get some food. And so I would go to the grocery store. I had a cooler in my trunk and I would buy food. I would buy carrots and onions and tomatoes. And then I would bring those into people's houses. And again, I didn't follow anything they told me, right? We had this blue book and the script and all this crap. And I'm like, go get your knives. Go ahead. Let's cut these. And use some of these. And, I didn't think that was rocket science. And I sold a lot of knives. What a surprise, right? I didn't do the, used car salesman plaid jacket crap.
So I would like to dive a little bit more into the Sales
Yeah.
Collective. Can you tell me a little bit about the people you help and what are some of the pain points that they're experiencing when they come to the Sales Collective? What problems
Yeah,
are you
sure.
helping them solve?
So most of the clients we work with, again, are probably 5 million to 30 million, right? They're, handful of salespeople, to 10. Some of our larger clients are over a billion, but most of it is small, entrepreneurial size companies that want to grow and scale and get to, 10 million and above, and they just don't know how to do it.
Right.
So many are looking for ways to increase revenue and scalability, but there's not a lot out there for them, to look for, to attract, right, the right people. And that's what's going to get them there, right? Is the people. But the problem is they don't know how to hire the people. So that's one of the things that we do in our full service, recruiting division. That's one piece. But the other piece is you've got to attract people, right, who
Mhm.
want to come. And I was just working on one of my talks called "If You Build It, They Will Come."
Hmm.
Most people know what movie that's from. It's Field of Dreams. If you don't, um, you have to build an environment that top talent wants to come and work for. And if you don't have that, why would they come? And even if you do get lucky and you draft the right person, can you get them to stay? Like, who cares if you get a great, talented salesperson? Are they going to stay for 8 years, 10 years? So, by providing environments, right, that help people grow, that's what we do. We build sales processes, right, that are 2025 specific, not 1995 specific. We help them train, coach, and teach their salespeople through something we call Sales DNA. That's the assessment tool we use. So, think of this sort of holistic approach to evaluating what they need. It's not just, oh, let's sell you magic sales training, right? No, they might not even need sales training. They might need a sales process, right, to be able to teach their people how to execute, right, what they already do. They might have great salespeople already and not need to hire any other people, but there's no coaching, right? There's no
Right.
process for them to get better. So it's quite a la carte, right? And most of what we do, we don't do the same thing for two separate clients.
And that was actually going to be my next question that I was going to ask is the approach that you take, is it a one size fits all or is it custom tailored? So it's
Yeah,
custom tailored to each individual case. And you talk about taking like a bold kind of a modern approach to these
yeah.
things and getting rid of some of the old antiquated systems. Could you give us maybe an example of like what are some of those antiquated systems and what are some of the modern approaches that are replacing them?
It's funny. The second talk I'm working on, for where I'm speaking at the big EOS conference coming up in April, but it's called "One Size Fits None,"
Mm,
and that's a big part of a chapter in my book as well. Like, you can't do the one size fits all magic sales training methodologies. Again, they don't work, right? It's so similar to restaurants. Like, you go in and they go, "What do you want?" And you go, "Well, do you have a menu?" And they go, "No, no, no. All we serve here is raw donkey liver." What are you talking about? Yeah, well, it's just, it's one meal for everybody, and we just figure we'll do that. Um, that's how companies do training, right? It's insane. Or if you're
right,
a golfer, right? You're a golfer. You go, "Here are your clubs." You go, "Yeah, but these don't. These aren't even the right size for me." "No, I know, but we just give the same set of clubs to all golfers."
right.
That is the entire sales training industry for the last 100 years, and they can't seem to figure out, right, why their salespeople aren't doing well. So
Right.
that's when I say modern, I mean creating an environment where it's individually customized sales training for each person. And we just finished building the second largest training library in the world. But what we built was customization. So we have a salesperson take the sales DNA test. That's the assessment tool we use. And then within an hour, they will have a custom built sales training learning path for them as an individual, right? And it's just, how could nobody have thought of this? And so maybe they have, but we never heard of it. So that was my idea, and how we could create this unique, right? One size fits one type of training.
Right.
So that's one thing. We're watching the bowl games last night, and if you're seeing this later, of course, it's right around the first of the year. And one of the guys at my friend's house, he's not even in sales, and he's like, "Man, Ricky was sharing your book with me, and this maybe I could do sales." And he goes, "But my company probably wouldn't like your book." I'm like, "Why is that?" And they go, "Well, because they do the opposite of everything you teach." And I said, "Oh, that's interesting. What do they do?" He goes, "Well, they assign, right, these arbitrary, quotas, like I have to sell this amount per week, right?" And that got me off on this whole tangent of how intergalactically idiotic quotas are. And like for a owner or a sales manager to actually think that salespeople give a shit what magic number you assign to them, what, like, McFly, anybody home? Like, salespeople care about two things, right? Themselves and their families. And if you do it right, again, if you build the culture properly, right, they'll care about their teammates and their customers, but only the world-class salespeople. And who wants that? So this whole quota thing, right? It just drives me insane. And I pointed to Steve, his name's Steve, at the game. I go, okay, Ohio State is destroying Oregon right now, okay,
Yeah.
which nobody really saw. I said, do you think, and I'm not even an Ohio State fan, do you think Ryan Day was in the locker room arbitrarily assigning the amount of yards his running backs need to rush for today? Is that what you think he did? You think he did to Will? Hey, Will, you know what? I decided I'm going to assign you 242.222 yards today. They would look at him like he had three heads. And this is what 99% of companies do to their salespeople. It's just mindless. And so you have to execute the play, like this play, like right now, off tackle, hand it off to, like, just execute that. And then you execute the next play. And then you execute the next play. Nobody wins games by arbitrarily getting numbers assigned to them. And this is what companies do. And it's just pure insanity. And they keep doing it.
Well, and it's hilarious to hear it put like that, because it sounds so obvious when you say it so plainly, and yet I don't think I've ever heard it just put like that. You know? So you mentioned that you are authoring a book. Would you like to talk a little bit about the Sales Contrarian and a little bit about the gyms? I mean, like that was just a gem of a piece of information right there. So I'd love to hear what else is in there to mine from that book.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. I'm a rudimentary Bob Ross historian, and all of this stuff I just talked about is in the book. And it's funny when I do keynotes and talks and all stuff, and I just show a picture of Bob Ross, right? And everybody's face lights up, right? Everybody. Yeah. And I stop and I say, "What? I didn't even say anything. Why are you lighting up the room?" And they go, "He was amazing, right? He's just an incredible human." And if you don't know Bob Ross, again, go look him up. But probably one of the most well-recognized faces in pop culture, the most famous American artist of all time, right, on public television. And when you think about how could a guy in the mid to late 80s get millions of people to sit in their house and watch him paint on television? You can't even fathom this. People like, what are you talking about? You're like, no, this really happened.
Right.
And I don't know if you know this or anybody listening. Do you know how many people actually painted and were painting while they were watching Bob instruct them? Do you know what percentage of people?
I don't. I would imagine not many.
3%.
Oh, wow.
97% of people would be fixated to the TV, have no interest in painting and no skill in painting.
Right.
And they could not look away. And it was because of the way that he taught. And Bob Ross would teach people so they could become great. Like, he wanted to show you that you could be great. He didn't want to show that he could be great. And that's why he is so iconic, and why still today millions of people know how to paint because of Bob. And so some of that teaching style, right, in the book, and that's not how salespeople are taught, right? Salespeople are taught, paint that. What do you mean? Yeah, paint that. Yeah, but I don't know how. No, well, we hired you, so paint it, right? And it's so unique that Bob taught a system of painting called alla prima, which, by the way, is 800 years old. He didn't invent this technique of painting, right? He just figured out a better way, right, to teach it to people. And some of you know this, you're probably laughing, but do you know what he called mistakes? Do you remember this?
Happy accidents.
Yeah. He made
I
it
was a big Bob Ross fan.
to make a mistake, right? It's okay to mess up.
Right.
That's not what salespeople are taught, right? And so it is a polar opposite. There's a ton of stuff like that in the book that hopefully people will be able to relate to.
That's absolutely fantastic. I remember one of those episodes where somebody had written into him and said, well, I could never do this because I'm colorblind. And so he did a whole one of grayscale.
Grayscale, yeah.
And I can remember going to Hobby Lobby as a kid that he had his own branded thing of paints and being like, ooh, cadmium yellow. Ooh.
Yep. And the worst part, if you guys watch the documentaries, which if you want to put your fist through the TV, turn on Netflix and watch it. His kid is penniless, right? These Kowalskis literally made his brother-in-law sign over the rights, right, to his name.
Wow.
So his own son doesn't even own Bob Ross Enterprise. They didn't even own it.
Oh, wow.
So the nicest guy on the planet got screwed over. Like, it's just enraging.
Which kind of explains the boom of all the Bob Ross merchandise we've seen lately. Chia Pets and all kinds of stuff.
Number one all-time selling Chia Pet. Yeah. But yeah, and it's funny. I wish I I have it. Give me 1 second.
Yeah.
This is one of the best gifts I ever got. You should see this place, a mess. So this is from one of my clients. Awesome. She handed it to me as I came off stage, right? And she's like, I got this for you. And I know your obsession with Bob. It's one of the only things I kept when I moved. That's
amazing.
From Dallas. So,
that's awesome. That's a fantastic.
Yeah. I can't believe it's funny. I just took it out.
So can you tell me a little bit about when you're coming to businesses with these tactics and these sales approaches, right? And you're trying to maybe bring them and update them and get them to, get rid of some of the antiquated stuff. Yeah. Do you receive any pushback from these people, these businesses, these companies? Are there any challenges? Like, what are some of the challenges you face? And is there any pushback from them that they, because I imagine a lot of these people are really rooted in their old ways.
Oh man, it's so, I just saw a commercial. I think it was yesterday on one of the football games for, Kitchen Nightmares starting over with Gordon Ramsay.
Oh yeah.
And some of you know this listening, he'll go into a restaurant, right, with no people, and they're barely struggling and they're 800 grand in debt, right? And he goes, how's your food? And they go, oh, it's a 10, right? Okay.
Right.
So, he's looking at the restaurant and it's got urine colored, yellow wallpaper, it's just the worst, right? So he goes, we got to get rid of this shit. So he comes in, changes it all around, right? New equipment, new chairs, new everything, new menu, right? And then these owners fight with him and they go, what does he know?
Right.
What does he know? He's got 100 restaurants. He's a gazillionaire, but what does he know? So they resist, right? Because people do not want to change, right? So he leaves, and this is real. Y'all can look it up. I don't know the exact number, but I'm pretty sure it's around 90% of the places he goes into go back to doing what they did before he came.
Right. And then they close.
And then we go to business.
Right.
So that happens rarely, but the part of what matters the most is really the structure, right, of doing these things. It's not what people say. So we don't have again, magic scripts and, you need to say this. And when Tom says this and you say that, right? We didn't do that kind of stuff. The most important thing is building this blueprint, this structure for success. And it's really about how to adopt this mindset of following a process versus, right, just hoping I get these results magically somehow. And I shared this on another interview. And because we were just talking about college, we can talk about NFL. But the average NFL athlete today, do you know what they make?
I wouldn't have a clue.
3.3 million.
Oh my God.
That's the average. Do you know how long a football game is?
Oh, yeah. I mean, the average, what, about an hour and a half, 2 hours?
3 hours, 12 minutes.
Is it that long? It seems like it goes so fast.
On the clock, it's 60 minutes.
Right.
But how much time is football, played?
Right.
So the number is 18 minutes.
Is it really?
So then you ask people, okay, well, if a ball is moving, right, being passed, run, or kicked, right, only for 18 minutes, is every player playing for 18 minutes?
Right. No way.
That can't be true, right? Was this 3 phases, right? Offense, defense, special teams. So even if it were equally divided, that's 6 minutes a week, right, that an NFL athlete does their job.
Wow.
Roughly, if it were equal. And they make how much again?
Right.
But why do they make that? It's not the 6 minutes they might work. It's the prep time they put in to potentially execute
to that level,
for
right.
6 minutes. And that number, if y'all can understand this, is about 60 to 65 hours a week, every week, for maybe working for 5 or 6 minutes.
Yeah.
So do they role play? Yeah. Do they watch game film? Yeah. Do they eat healthy and work out? Yeah. So they make $3 million. What does the average salesperson make? And then what's the ratio that a salesperson puts in to prepare, right, for their game? It ain't 65 hours to 5 minutes. I can promise you that's not the ratio. So it's getting them to understand that is what's preventing them from selling more stuff, not some dumbass closing question or, rapport building type. Boy, that's a nice picture. I love the color pink. This is
right.
You got to practice and role play and watch game film. That's how you get better. But that's the stuff that's hardest to get new clients to do.
Yeah.
Because they've never done it, right? Imagine trying to get someone to role play who's never role played.
Yeah.
So that's the stuff that's the hardest.
When it's wild to think about 6 minutes, because I was gonna say I'm a Chiefs man. I'm a Chiefs fan, so I think I see 6 minutes of Taylor Swift each week.
Yeah. It's probably more.
She might be putting in more work than the guys on the field.
Yeah, and it's people they never break it down, so they don't understand, right? I mean, the play clock, right, is 25 seconds, right, that you have to get off a play. So the play clock is longer than the plays, right? When the ball is snapped, right, an average play is 7 seconds.
Yeah.
So you all can do the math, right? If I'm on offense, right, for 40 plays, that's 280 seconds. It's about 5 minutes.
That's wild. So with all of this, with your your author work, your speaker work, with the sales collective, everything you're doing, you're helping businesses, you're helping people. Would you say that passion to help people, that drive to help people, is that something that's always been with you, or is it something that you've cultivated and learned along the way? Where does that passion come from?
Yep. I wouldn't say always. I'd say, after the Cutco days, and it's funny. I'm still friends with some of my old buddies, but I had to give this talk once, and at the Cutco conventions they would have in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, right, Amish country. So I'm like an 18, 19, and Al DiLeonardo was still the president of Vector, right? He's like, hey, you're giving a talk on names and uses, which is how you use each knife. I'm like, fucking to hell I am. I'm not going. What are you, crazy? He goes, no, you're doing it and you don't really have a choice. I'm like, I'm not doing it. So I remember like him pushing me onto the stage and like me digging my heels in. Like, that's what I remember. And then I wanted to die, right? Deathly afraid of people and all that. So after what felt like 5 hours of me up there, right? It was probably 10 minutes, 15 minutes. So I came off the stage and there was this big line of people, right? 30 people long. So I'm like, oh, is this a buffet? It's right before lunch, right? It's a food line, and they're like, what are you talking about? No, I have a question for you. I'm like, what? So there were like 30 kids, right, who wanted to talk to me or thank me, or I never thought about using the salmon knife like that, or whatever, right? You get and that's probably when I was like, holy crap, like I actually have some value to some other human. So that's probably what started that. So now as a speaker, it's the same for me when I, travel the country, or I do a lot of speaking for Vistage. I was telling Armando. So, I'm in rooms with CEOs, for 3 hours at a time, right? In every city, in every state. And, they've run extremely successful companies, right? These ladies and gentlemen have 100 million, 500 million, some $1 billion companies. And when they come up after, and they're like, I've been doing this 30 years. It didn't occur to me, right, that I was doing this, or that I never thought of it that way.
Right.
And so they may or may not hire us, but what do I care, right? This person is now going to view things differently, and maybe they won't, treat their salesperson again like a notch on their belt to EBITDA.
Right.
So that's sort of what drives it.
Well, and can you tell me, I mean, it sounds like, all these businesses and people that you've helped, that you've kind of brought these new tactics and new techniques into. Is there maybe a story you could share with us? Is there maybe a story that stands out of someone or a business that you helped that you saw a real transformation in as a result of your guidance and help?
Yeah, I mean, there's quite a few. I'll think of one. We'll just call him. We'll call him Dave.
Dave.
So in the IT world, and I remember working with them. They were maybe 10 or 12 million, something like that, when we started. Then 2 years later, they were approaching 25. And one of the sales guys, the account executives, and he was their best guy. And he first took the sales DNA test. Again, we start everybody on that, right? And that sort of gives us this MRI, right, of a salesperson. And here's what you're good at. Here's where you're being held back. Here's the negative thoughts that are affecting you, and so on. And we had him take it. He did okay. And we don't have to go into it too deep, but let's just say he scored like a 72 out of 100. So that's pretty good, right? He's in the top 30th, percentile, right? And he was doing about 2 million a year in managed IT sales. And 2 years later, he just reached out to me out of the blue, and he's like, hey man, hey Steve, I just took the DNA test again. I'm like, what do you mean, Dave? Why didn't you tell me? He goes, well, I just wanted to take it on my own. I'm like, dude, I would have given it to you. He goes, no, I wanted to pay for it on my own. And he scored 91 or something.
Oh, wow.
And I said, that's amazing. So he took me to dinner. He's like, I can't even thank you enough. And I'm like, well, why? And he said, I did 8 million this year. So we could never say, hey, we'll help you do 4 times the amount. That's all BS, right? All these scammers with their 10x bullshit and all this stuff. Any growth, right? If you grow by 20%, I don't care what it is, your income, your garden, right? Your business, you will double in 5 years, right? You don't have to fall for this crap on social media. You just need a little bit of growth consistently. And that's just one, right? But that was pretty incredible to see how much you could get better in 2 years. But again, it's 2 years. This is not,
right.
Hey, give me 10 grand and you can watch me work out. Like these other dipshits, right, on social media, creating their fake armies, right? That's not real. So
Right.
when you put the time in like he did, and you put the effort in and you practice and you get better, like it's astronomical growth, right? I mean, crazy growth. So yeah, that's just one,
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, Steve, this has been awesome. If any
Thanks,
of
man.
the people listening, any of the entrepreneurs, business owners listening, if they'd like to reach out to you, if they could use the services of the Sales Collective, or if they're interested in checking out the Sales Contrarian, where can the people find you?
So the easiest way is LinkedIn. I'm on there all the time, doing my best to provide as much value as I can. And so I would say probably LinkedIn is the best way, or obviously the salescollective.com. You can check that out as well. But just appreciate you being on, having me on here. And I get about a month away from the book, so super stoked about that. So
congratulations on that. That's a Herculean effort, isn't it?
Yeah, it's tough, man. I thought it would be easier. It's my second book. I thought it'd be easier. It's a lot of work and a lot of editing and a lot of changing. And so I hope people like it. And just did the Audible recording as well, because people want to listen. So
well, everybody listening, thank you for tuning in.
Thanks,
and
man.
Thank you, Steve, for joining us. And everybody listening, check out the new book coming out. Where can they find the older book?
So it's funny. I just told this to another crowd and I go, I'm only telling you this. Don't buy it because it's not worth the 9 cents I'll make. But it's called Sales is Not a Dirty Word. And so I'm sure you can find it on Amazon. But it is funny. I got a LinkedIn message and he goes, hey, did you get to 12 cents? I'm like, no, it was 9. But so yeah, so it's, this one's with a legit publisher. The first one's self-published, but this is probably the better part of a year and a half.
Wow.
So thanks for letting me share that.
Well, thank you so much for joining us, Steve. And thank you everyone for listening. Steve, thank you so much.
Thanks, man. Thanks, Adrian. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of Partnerships for Profit. We hope you've gained valuable insights on how to form profitable partnerships and take your business to the next level. Be sure to subscribe and leave us a review wherever you listen to podcasts so you never miss an episode. Got a partnership story to share or someone you'd like to see featured on the show? Reach out to us. Until next time, keep building those partnerships for profit.